When I first heard about Figma CMS, I thought it was something that only developers touch. But Figma makes it stupidly so simple for you to use CMS. And in 10 minutes, I'll be showing you how you can effectively make use of CMS to power blogs, testimonials, portfolios, basically any dynamic content you want to add to your design. Without further ado, let me introduce myself. I'm Praise Anyway. You're welcome back to my channel and let's get started. For this Figma tutorial, I'll be walking you through in understanding what a CMS is first. We'll then look at the core concept of a CMS. After then, I'll be showing you an example of a polished CMS so you can get a glimpse of what we are talking about. Then fourthly, I'll be guiding you through on how you can perfectly set up a CMS collection. Then lastly, I'll be showing you guys on how to set conditions on your CMS collection. In this module, we'll be talking about how to use your variables, your components, in relating it to CMS. Okay, I'm not going to spill everything now. Let's just start with the first thing, which is what is a CMS? CMS, also known as Content Management System. Just think of CMS like a reusable content library or a database that consists of text, links, images, and so on that are neatly arranged in what is known as collections. Okay, calm down because I know some people are almost lost when I say mentioning reusable content and database. Let me break it down so you can understand better. What does this mean if you are using CMS to build a site? What is literally the difference between someone who is using CMS to build a site and someone who is not using CMS to build a site? So the difference is clear. Figma CMS helps keep your website content all in one place, which makes it very easy to organize and update content without going through the stress of creating it from scratch. So if I was designing this without using a CMS collection and I want to update a new job I just did on my portfolio website, it means I have to start from scratch in creating the new portfolio I want to add. But with Figma CMS, if you want to update a new blog or a new portfolio to your website, you don't have to go through the stress of starting from a blank canvas or creating from scratch. All you have to do is just to go to the CMS collection that you have already created, create a new item, fill out this bunch of fields here, and in real time, this content will update on your website. It's just that easy. So instead of you creating from scratch and trying to make space for this new blog or this new content to appear on your website, just use CMS because it makes things really easy. So whenever your website needs this piece of content or information, Figma CMS automatically pulls that data from its CMS collection to your design. The best part is that the visitor viewing it only sees the polished design without knowing what is actually backing that piece of content. In a more practical way, like I've already said, if we were to add a new design or a new blog to this design, all we have to do is just to go to the CMS collection, add a new item. Let me just call this Praise Portfolio. So slug is literally just the name of the website or the name of the blog you want to add. So it's just like a website, let's just say a website URL, something like that. So I'm going to fill out this bunch of fields. Let me just add an image here. After adding this image, let me show you what it looks like on the main canvas so you can get a glimpse of what I'm trying to say. Okay, it says we have to add an item. Let's just write in something like Praise is a techie. Then to make sure that this CMS item or this fields we just filled out is saved, all we have to do is just to save the draft so we don't misplace that. So going back to the CMS canvas, you will see a new blog is added to the website. So you can see we didn't really even touch our design canvas. All we have to do was to bring out a set of fields, then fill them, then it will automatically appear on your design. But it doesn't end there with CMS. Each portfolio collection here has its own detailed page. So what does this mean? Figma CMS gives us this leverage to add a detailed page that defines a collection. So when you first set up a CMS blog, it comes in two pages. One is the index page and the other one is the detailed page. The index page is where you display all the collections in the design, but the detailed page defines each of the collection. For the detailed page of each collection, go to the properties, you will see articles, just click it, and you will see the detailed page of each of the collection. This one here is blank because we didn't finish filling out the fields of the new item we added. But for you to see other fields that defines other collections, you can just access that at the top value here. So this displays all the item in the CMS collection. So the way CMS works, like I've already said, you can bring out a collection that displays a product, then it also gives you the leverage to add a detailed page that defines each of the collection. So like this one here, the second one, the food delivery UI, you can now see there's a detailed version for the collection on the index page. So if a client comes to my portfolio website and he wants to know more about the project, all you have to do is just to access the index page. From the index page, if you click it, it will then lead you into the detailed page. So by previewing this, the detailed page we just previewed now belong to this, yes, the food delivery UI. So this one here is the collection, is on the index page which displays the product. But for you to see the details of the collection, you can just click it and it will lead you to the detailed page of the collection. With this brief introduction, you now know what a Framer CMS is. Let's go more in depth in understanding the core concept of how the CMS actually works. Framer CMS is made up of collections. What are collections? We have been mentioning collections here and there. What are collections? A collection is like a folder, or will I just say a database that holds related content. In each collection are a bunch of fields that define an item. So the index page is acting as the collections, and what differentiates each collections are the fields. Then if you want to go more in depth in understanding the items, what then differentiates each item is the type of content you input on the fields. So don't get this twisted. Let me just recap everything I just said. I said a collection is like a folder that holds related content together. Then inside each content lies a bunch of fields that define an item. So the reason why this item is different from the second item is based on the fields. So these three concepts I just talked about, collections, item, and fields, are the three most important concepts if you really want to understand how a CMS works. This design doesn't have any CMS that is being set up, meaning we are going to start from scratch. Another thing is this: I created this full landing page using Framer hidden AI feature. Like, I didn't really even touch anything on this design canvas. All I had to do was to type in just this prompt, and in seconds it gave me this full optimized website. So if you want me to create a detailed tutorial on how I achieve this with Framer that is optimizable for all the breakpoints, let me know in the comment section by typing next tutorial. So let's move on into the juicy part, which is setting up your own CMS collection. To do that, you have it all lined up at the tools bar here. So you see this is looking like a database icon. So we are going to be clicking it. Because we don't have any CMS collection here, we have so many ways to set up a CMS collection. If you want an already made blog, Framer has already prepared that for you. All you have to do is just to hit the add blog. On the landing page, you will see that this default article list has appeared on our design. From here, we can now customize it to how we want it to be. Because on my own portfolio website, you can see that it's not really. Let me just go back to the article pages. So the page we're seeing right here, it's simply what I customized into something like this. So you don't always have to use the default state of what Framer gave you to create your CMS collection. On the CMS setting, we have sources where we can control the item we want to reference. So you can either choose the category, though we have not set up any category. That is why you can see no item match the current filter. So let's just change it back to articles. We can also add paginations to the CMS collection to keep the audience retention high. So we can reference out like 4 items. On the whole CMS collection, we only have 4 items. That is why it's going to reference the 4 items. But if you want to reference maybe like 2 items, we can also reduce this down to like 2. So when the user clicks the load more button, it's going to reference out the full item. We can also set a limit to our CMS collection. It's almost the same like paginations, but the difference is that the user won't be able to click the load more button to reference out other CMS collection. So we can set a limit of 2 CMS collection, and it's going to reference the 2 latest items on the CMS collection. After walking through the basic functions of a CMS collection on the properties menu, let's go to the main CMS canvas so we can understand things better. So to do that, you click the same CMS button that we clicked to add a CMS block. The default state of each collections are these fields. But one question is this: what if there are other fields that I want to add to our CMS collection? how do we edit and add new fields to the CMS collection? It's pretty easy to set up, but I just want to explain something that caught my notice that I might have skipped, which is talking about categories. So what categories help you to do in CMS is that it helps you to reference other items from other CMS collection. So on the default state is referencing the item called CMS and basis. Going back to the design canvas, you can see here on this collection is referencing the set CMS and basis. So by previewing this, when we click CMS, it's going to show us the item on another field called CMS. So there's nothing that deep about categories. The main thing it does is that it helps you to reference other items from other CMS collection. So going back to where we stopped, to add a new field to this collection is very easy to do. You can do that in two ways actually. So you can click these three dots here, edit fields, or you can click the edit field outside of the collection. So anyone can go. Let me just go with this. So to add a new field, all you have to do is just to click the plus button here and you will see different types of fields. So you have a field for plain text, formatted text, dates, links, images, gallery, colors, toggle, options, and so on. So let's just go with the field of plain text. We can rename this as Framer CMS text. You can now see that the new field is added to the list of fields that we have on this collection. So if we want this Framer CMS text to be at the top of the CMS fields, all we have to do is just to drag it to the top. We can also populate this field. Let's just write that Framer CMS is easy. Of course, it's very easy. Now we have added a new field to our CMS collection. I think we have a bigger issue. Not really a bigger issue, just a tiny, small issue. So going back to the design canvas, we can't just find the new field we just added to the CMS collection. It's nowhere to be found. It's not even on the blog. So how can we bring out this new field to the design canvas? What I normally do in this case is this. I'll bring out a placeholder text, then use variable to connect it to the CMS field that we typed out. So don't get this confused because it's a very easy process. So bring out a text, can just type in anything. Going to the content of the text, you can click this plus here to add a variable. So when we set a variable, we now have the access to link this placeholder text to the CMS field that we created inside of the collection. So this is it here, the Framer CMS text, just click it. After connecting it to the CMS collection, I don't know, Framer have this issue of clearing out what we typed in. I don't know why it's this way, but let's just fix this by typing it back. So Framer CMS is easy and hit enter. So when you do that, you now see it's referencing the field from the CMS collection. So how do you know an element is tied to a CMS? Because I've not really told you guys about this. So anywhere you see this blue, we like call it a blue button, just know it's connected to something. So by clicking this, it's going to lead us to the CMS field. This doesn't really apply to text. What if we want to introduce more images to our detailed page? We can also do that, why not? So hit F again, create a frame here. Let's just drag this out. So we are going to create a CMS field. So go back to the CMS collection, the first one, and we're going to add a new item. Edit item, then click the plus to add an image field. So we can rename this as, let's just leave it as image 2. Let's drag it up to the second place. On the design canvas, we can now tie it to the CMS collection. So click the frame, go to the properties, click the plus beside the field, set a variable, then click the image 2. It's now going to tie it to the image field. But since we didn't add any image on the CMS field, nothing is going to show up. So let's just add an image. With this, you now see how easy it is to bring out ordinary frames or text and knowing how to tie them to a CMS field. Going back to the index page, which is a blog, in this case, it's where all the products are displayed, you know this. So what if we want to reference these articles on our main design? Because when we created a CMS collection, it automatically added a new page to the number of pages that we have here. But what if we want to reference these articles on our design here? How do we go about that? It's very easy again. Just have to go to the insert and just clear this out. You go down to CMS because there's a section for it here. You go down to CMS collection. So all you have to do is just to drag it and paste it on your design. It's just that easy. But one thing is this, when we pasted it on our design, the size is actually small, because if we should zoom out from this, you will notice we cannot really see the CMS collection that we added. So this is where customization enters. So first thing first, you select the article list here. So go to the properties and change the width to fill width. When you're customizing things in CMS, what you apply to the first CMS collection applies to all. Here we only have the access to select the first CMS collection, but if we try to click other collections here, we won't have the ability to do that. So any change we do on the first CMS collection applies to all CMS collections. So in this way, I want this image to be this big here. Okay, let's make it a little bit big. If you can see here, some part of the article image is going inside of the frame. I think this issue is coming from the main stack that is wrapping this section. So I will select this and set the height to fit content. So in this way, it's going to show all the items on the stack. For the text here, I think it would be best if it's in a vertical part. So I'll select the frame here. I've already selected it. Go down to the stack, the direction, and change it to vertical. Then we can also align it to the left so that the text can start from the left. So everything we have done now has applied to other CMS collection here. So we can also choose to set fill width so that this image can fill the remaining width of this frame. So you select the first article, click it, and change the width here to fill, so you can fill the width of the frame. So we are not yet done, because we have to also set the image, the article image, to width fill. So just do this and you'll see the image has actually filled the width of the frame. So we can also increase this image to something like this. We can also choose to turn this CMS article in a grid format. So select the full article here, go down to the layout option and change it to grid. So in this way, it's going to change the direction of everything in a grid format. So this way is good if we want to showcase some product on our design. We can also set a limit to this. So go to the properties, because I want it to reference just two collections. So I'm going to change the limit from 10 to 2. Based on the limit that I set it to, which will reference 2 latest CMS collection. If we're to add a new item, go to the new item and maybe fill out this, let's just say praise tutorial, and maybe add a slug. A slug can be anything. You don't just have to correct yourself when you're selecting a slug. We can also add an image here. Let's just select. For the content of this CMS field, let's just type in like get started. Okay. And when we go back to the CMS canvas, you see it's now referencing the latest item we added to the CMS collection. So you see another breakpoint is perfectly responsive, so we don't have the stress of setting things up. But on the mobile screen, you can see we are not really seeing the full width and height of the CMS collection that we added. We can always rearrange this. We are simply going to change it from the grid back to stack. So this will now give us the ability to control the behavior in a vertical path. So when I change it to a stack to control the direction, you can see some part of the CMS collection is hiding inside of the frame. We can always readjust this. I'll show you how to do this. Just locate the parent frame this CMS collection is wrapped in. So the parent stack wrapping this, I believe it's this. Yep. On the properties menu, you can see the height is set to fixed. So this is why it's not really referencing the full height of the CMS collection. So we can change it to fit content, so you can fit the content of the frame. Moving to the last section of this tutorial is where I will show you on how to set conditions to your CMS items. So go back to the CMS blogs. On this place, you can see the new item we added doesn't have a category attached to it. That's why you can see here that the no item matches this current filter. So go to the CMS fields, go down to the categories and maybe add 1 or 2 categories and you will have that fixed out. So let's go to the detailed page where I will show you on how to set conditions to your design. But let's first understand the concept on what I mean by conditions. So all this item here on this list has the same type of field and behavior. But one thing is this: what if on this item we don't want to reference any image? And if we should, let's just say delete this, good and fine, the image is not there anymore. But going back to other item, you can see it deleted on everything. So just have this in mind that the CMS item works alike. Anything you add on one item applies to all items. So let's just bring back the image. And again, what if you want to realign the content on the CMS item, only on the CMS item? Let's just say we want the image to be at the bottom of the frame. But if you do this, it applies to all CMS items here. So let me show you on how to set conditions to this CMS item. Let me just go back to getting started and rearrange things here. On the properties menu, you might also have this thought of removing the image here, and you might be happy, yes, the image is not being referenced on this item. But if you should see, it's having this weird frame here, and it also applies to other items here. So it's not really solving any problem. Let's just cancel this. So let me show you the right way on how to set up a condition on your CMS item. So since this image you want to use as this example, going out to the visibility, if we were to change this to no, you will see it still remains the same thing on other item. But one thing is this, we are going to set a condition on this visibility. So by clicking this plus, we set a variable, then select the image. When we hover through it, you can see these extended fields that is saying is set and isn't set. You might be confused with these two terms. Let me just break it down for you. So what this two term means is this. So when it's set to is set, it means that it's going to reference that particular content if there's a CMS field that is attached to it. But if there's no CMS field which it isn't set, it's not going to reference it. So by setting it to it's set, so you can see after setting this condition here, nothing really happens. But this is it. If we should go back to the image field on the CMS collection, by removing it, it's taking that place of it isn't set. So when there's no image attached to the CMS field, it's not going to reference it on this particular item. So if we should go back and check out other item, you can see that the image still stays on other item. So this is just like the basis of setting out conditions. Let's now go more in depth in this condition thing. What if we want to reference two images on this item? So by controlling this to copy in another item, when we check out other item, it's double there, of which we don't want. We only want these two images to be on the first item. So to set conditions on these two images, we are going to wrap them in a stack. Let's just do this. Ctrl-Alt-Enter. Then we are going to rename this as banners CMS. So by setting the banner CMS, we are going to turn it into a component. Right click, create a component. Banner CMS is okay for the name. So this is it. We are not really seeing the two items or the two banners that we set just because it's tied to a CMS. I'm going to select these two banners here and select the second one and remove the condition and the CMS tag that is tied to it. We can always link it back to the CMS when we are done customizing this stuff. So I'll be adding another variant to add another variant, and on this second variant is where we reference when it's set to one image. So select the second banner and change the visibility to no. So by setting this kind of interaction, we can now have a better ground in conditioning our CMS. So when we want to reference one image, we can reference this image, and when we want to reference the second image or the two images at once, we can reference the first variant that has the two images. But for us to set conditions on these two images here, we have to set variables on the properties menu, so we can be able to condition it right from here. So go back to the component canvas. I'll select the first variant, go down to your image field, create variable, an image variable, then let's just change this to image 1. I don't know what this is doing here. Is it default? So let's just remove this. Then I'll select the second image, go down to field, create variable, image variable, and this will be image 2. And that is it, but it doesn't just end there. So with this, we can now condition what we want to condition. For the first image here, I will link it back to the CMS that it was in. So yep, one CMS is back. So talking about the second image, we don't actually have a field to link it to. So go back to the CMS collection, edit fields, so edit fields, and I'm going to add an image field. So it's already set to image 2, so no need to customize it. So let me just change this image, the first one, to image 1, so it can be perfectly ordered. So let's rearrange this to the top here. So going back to our canvas, let's link the second image to the new field we created. So image set variables image 2. So the two items here are now tied to a CMS. Moving further with our conditioning, what I really want is this. I want to condition it in a way that when an image is tied to a field, it should only reference that image. But looking at what we are doing here is kind of different, because on the second field, there's no image attached to it. When there's no image attached to it, it's not supposed to be referencing it, right? So the one that there's an image that is attached to it, which is the first one that you are seeing here, which should look like something like this. So we are going to be conditioning it in a way that when there's no image attached to the field, it should only reference image 1. And when there are 2 images attached to this set field, it's going to reference the 2 images at once. So by setting a condition, click variant, set a variable. Since it's the second image we want to treat, so we are going to select the second image and click is set. So don't get confused with everything you are saying now. I will break it down for you to understand. So everything that's happening here is this. When there is an image attached to this field, it should reference the variant 2 that carries the 2 images. But when there's no image attached to the field, it should reference image 1, which carries the one that has an image attached to it. So let me recap everything I just said, but let me go to the component canvas for you to understand this better. So when there is an image attached to a field, which is image 1, it should reference only variant 1. But in the case where the 2 images are set to a field, it should reference variant 2. So recapping it again, when there is an image attached to one field, it should reference one field, which is variant 1. But when the 2 images are present on the 2 fields, it should reference variant 2 that has the 2 fields. So going back to the setting transform, so it's what I just said. When there's an image on the second field, it should reference the 2 images because the 2 images are present. But in a case where one is not present and one is present, it should reference the one that is present, which is variant 1. So by setting that, you can now see that issue is solved. So now when we add an image to the second field, let's add an image here, image, choose an image. So with this, when we added the second image, it now references the 2 images at once. But in a case where we remove one, it's going to reference the one that is present. So that is everything about conditioning. You can play with these fields. Just take your time to really understand how condition works. And in no time, you will see you become a framer, a CMS expert. So if you're on my channel for the first time, click that like button, comment down below. Let me know what you want to see next on this channel. Until next time, keep designing.